I don't know when it started to feel like I was suffocating. Maybe it was gradual, like the slow tightening of a belt that was once comfortable, but now, with every passing month, it's one notch tighter. I've tried to pinpoint the exact moment I realized the weight of it, but there's no clear event. It's just become this persistent, gnawing feeling that's always there, lurking beneath the surface, stealing away the peace I used to take for granted. It's not like I'm living in squalor or anything, far from it. But that's what people tell themselves, right? That they're doing fine because they're not homeless, they have a roof over their heads, food to eat. And I do. But I also don't feel fine. The truth is, every dollar I earn feels like it's already spoken for before it even hits my bank account. I remember when I first started my job out of college, thinking that a steady paycheck would change everything. The anxiety of wondering if I could survive on my own faded away as I got that first paycheck, that first taste of independence. I was making more than enough to cover rent, utilities, and even have a little extra for the occasional night out with friends. But now everything costs more, and my income? It hasn't budged an inch. Rent goes up every year, sometimes twice a year, and every time I brace myself for the email from my landlord with the updated rental agreement. They tell me it's market rate and I just need to keep up with the times. I used to laugh it off, but now it feels like a joke with a punchline that hits too close to home. My apartment used to be a cozy place, but now it's a constant reminder of the choices I've had to make to keep it. I could move to a cheaper place, but there's always something about the location I don't like: too far from work, no real public transport, maybe the area feels unsafe. So I stay, and the rent climbs higher. Then there are the utilities: electric, water, internet, and cell phone. Everything is more expensive than it was just a year ago. I cut back on luxuries. I don't have cable, don't order takeout as often. I've tried switching to cheaper cell phone plans, but they come with their own set of frustrations. In the end, I always wind up back with the more expensive option because it's the only one that doesn't leave me tearing my hair out trying to use the service. And then groceries. I don't remember when it became normal to pay almost $100 for a trip to the supermarket, but it happened. I look at the things I used to buy and wonder why I'm still buying them. Bread, eggs, milk, vegetables, they've all gone up in price, but the thing is, I don't even have the option of cutting them out. I try to buy cheaper alternatives, but the cost of those just seems to keep rising, too. There's no way around it. I've stopped buying things like snacks, frozen meals, or treats, because I can't justify the expense. And even when I cut back on those little indulgences, it still doesn't feel like enough. The costs outpace the small cuts I make. I've had to get creative with what I cook, and more often than not, it's pasta. Pasta with canned sauce. Pasta with whatever vegetables are on sale that week. Some days I joke about how I've become a master chef in a way that's entirely unintentional, but the truth is, I'm just too tired of making do. I think about the meals I could be enjoying if I didn't have to pinch every penny. I think about taking a weekend to visit a new restaurant or going out with friends, but then I look at my bank account, and I remember. I can't afford it. But it's not just the things I buy or the bills I pay that are weighing me down. It's the constant sense of uncertainty. It's knowing that at any moment, something unexpected could come up: a car repair, a medical bill, an emergency, and I'd have no choice but to juggle even more. I don't have much of a safety net. I don't have family to fall back on. I've always been told that you've got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, that I need to work hard and do my best. And I do. I work 40 hours a week, plus overtime when I can get it. I push through the exhaustion, the stress, the constant worry that I'll make one wrong move and suddenly, I'll fall off the edge. I think about the future, too, and it's hard not to feel a little hopeless. When I was younger, I had dreams. I wanted to travel, maybe backpack through Europe or visit Japan, live a life full of experiences. I wanted to own a home one day, have a place to call my own that I could decorate the way I liked. I wanted a career that didn't just pay the bills, but that made me feel fulfilled, like I was making a difference. But now, all of those things feel so far out of reach. I wonder if I'll ever be able to take a vacation, or if the thought of spending money on something that isn't essential will always feel like a luxury I can't afford. I dream about buying my own house, but the way the housing market looks right now, it feels like a pipe dream. Everyone tells me to just save, but they don't understand. I can't save when I'm constantly trying to keep up with the rising tide of expenses. It feels like I'm stuck in place, running on a treadmill but going nowhere. There are moments when I try to push through, to remind myself that there's still hope, that I'm not just existing but still living. But those moments don't last. Most days, it's just a matter of surviving. I've stopped looking at my bank account too often. I don't want to face the anxiety it gives me. I try to ignore the numbers, even though I know deep down that if I don't confront them, it'll only get worse. But I get too tired. There's only so much energy I have left after all the other pressures. I do have small victories, though. A few weeks ago, I managed to stick to a budget for an entire month. I even had a couple of extra dollars at the end of it. But those moments feel fleeting. The reality is that it's still not enough to make me feel secure. I want to be able to breathe again. I want to feel like I have room to move, to grow, to dream. But for now, I just keep pushing forward, one foot in front of the other, even as the ground beneath me feels less and less solid. Some days, I'm not sure how much longer I can keep this up. I tell myself I'm doing my best, that it's just temporary, but the weight of it all doesn't always feel temporary. It's hard not to wonder if I'm just stuck in a system that's designed to keep me running in place, chasing after something that always seems just out of reach. I don't want to give up on my dreams, but some days it feels like the future I imagined for myself is slipping away, replaced by a version of my life I didn't choose. I don't want to feel trapped. But right now, that's what I am. I try to stay hopeful, I really do. But there are days when hope feels like a luxury, too. And all I can do is hold on and hope that someday, somehow, the weight will lift. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. I've always been told that adulthood would be this exciting time of freedom, where I'd finally be in charge of my own life. But no one mentioned how much of that freedom would be locked behind a door of bills, taxes, and costs that grow every day, while the money I make seems to stay the same. It's like I'm stuck in a race where the finish line keeps moving further away, no matter how hard I run. Every month feels like I'm barely keeping my head above water. If I'm honest, sometimes I wonder how long I can keep swimming. It wasn't always like this. When I was younger, I used to think that if I just got a decent job, I'd be set. I'd move into a place that felt like home, decorate it with little things I loved, and maybe even travel a bit, see some of the world, you know? But now, those dreams feel like something from a distant past, a version of me that was a little too optimistic, a little too naive. Every month is the same drill. My paycheck comes in, and the first thing I do is pay rent. It's the biggest chunk, the one that feels like a weight on my chest, and it keeps going up. Last year it was $1,200. This year it's $1,350. Next year, I'm sure it'll be more. I feel like I'm just watching money disappear into these holes I can't fill. After rent, there's the utilities, car payment, insurance, gas, groceries. By the time I get through those, there's barely anything left. A couple $100, sometimes less. Enough for a few meals out with friends or to grab coffee, but it's a fleeting thing. It's never enough to make me feel like I'm building something. I know what I'm supposed to do. I should be saving, planning for the future. But what future? The future feels like something that belongs to other people, not to someone like me who's working hard just to make it through another month. It's hard not to look around and feel like everyone else has figured it out, like they're cruising along while I'm just stuck in this cycle of paycheck to paycheck, balancing the impossible task of paying for the life I want while barely scraping by. It's not even about luxuries. I'm not talking about designer clothes or fancy nights out. It's about the basics: food, gas, my phone bill, the internet I need for work, the occasional need for new shoes when the old ones wear down. Every purchase feels like an act of rebellion against the system that wants to break me. I feel the guilt every time I spend. Even something as simple as a cup of coffee feels like I'm making a choice between comfort and survival. I used to treat myself now and then, but now, it's like I've become a version of myself who forgets what enjoyment is supposed to feel like. And don't even get me started on my student loans. I'm still in the middle of paying those off. My degree was supposed to open doors, but all it seems to have done is lock me in a cage of debt that feels endless. Every payment is a reminder that the choices I made when I was younger were both my ticket to a better future and the chains that tie me down. I know education is supposed to be the key, but all I see is that key rusting, struggling to turn in a lock that's already too worn out to make a difference. I keep telling myself that it'll be worth it, that one day I'll get the job that will pay off all this debt. But right now, I'm not so sure. I try to keep a positive outlook, I really do. I remind myself that there's hope, that things could get better if I just push through this period. But some days, I feel like I'm drowning in the pressure. There's this constant low-grade anxiety that sits in the back of my mind, making it hard to concentrate. I can't relax. Every decision feels heavy. If I want to do something fun with friends, I have to decide if it's worth missing a payment or skipping meals. Sometimes I feel like I'm losing my mind, trying to balance it all. I want to be happy. I want to feel secure. But there's this nagging feeling that the more I try to claw my way out of this mess, the deeper I get stuck in it. At night, I lie in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to quiet my mind. I think about the future, what it might look like if things were different. If I didn't have to worry about making ends meet. If I could actually save some money. Maybe even travel. Maybe buy a home someday. The dream feels so distant, though. My friends post about their vacations, their new apartments, their promotions, and I try not to let the jealousy bubble up, but it's hard not to feel like I'm missing out on something essential. I'm not lazy. I'm not irresponsible. I work hard. I hustle, I side hustle, I try to pick up extra shifts whenever I can. I'm doing everything I can think of to change things, but the world around me seems to be pushing back harder than ever. I watch the news about inflation, rent hikes, and the gig economy, and it feels like I'm trapped in a maze I didn't sign up for. Some days, I feel like I'm losing my grip on the person I used to be, the one who believed in dreams, the one who thought everything would work out eventually. That person feels like a stranger to me now, a version of myself that was way too hopeful for this broken system. But there's still a part of me that keeps holding on to something. Some tiny spark that keeps me moving forward. Maybe it's because I know things can't stay this way forever, right? It's hard to believe in that sometimes, but I have to. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm doing what I can to make sure it's something better than this. It's not about expecting a miracle, it's about surviving, about finding ways to inch toward the life I want, even if it feels like an uphill battle. I'm still figuring it out. I'm still trying to get my bearings in a world that feels increasingly difficult to navigate. But I'm not giving up. I don't have all the answers, and I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I've learned that sometimes just getting through today is an achievement in itself. I've had to put a lot of dreams on hold. I've had to accept that some things will have to wait, and that's been hard. But maybe one day, when things are a little easier, I'll be able to breathe again. Maybe I'll be able to take a vacation, or buy a new coat without second-guessing myself. Maybe I'll finally be able to save for the future instead of just surviving. For now, though, I hold on to that small, flickering hope that things can get better. I just have to keep pushing. Keep swimming. I wake up to the harsh buzz of my alarm at 6:30 a.m., and it's always the same, a slow, painful drag from the covers to the cold, unfriendly light of morning. I know it's a new day, but it feels just like the one before, and the one before that. I'm 25. I should be excited about this stage of life, right? I should be thinking about new opportunities, setting myself up for a future, chasing dreams. But I'm not. I'm trying to make it through another day without losing my grip. My phone screen lights up with notifications, mostly reminders: rent's due next week, credit card payment pending, the power bill still hanging over me like a dark cloud. For a brief second, I think about calling in sick, but I know I can't afford that. Every hour I don't work is a dollar I don't make. And at the rate my expenses are climbing, that dollar feels like it's shrinking by the second. I stumble out of bed and get dressed, avoiding the mirror. Who has the time to look at their reflection when there are bills to pay? I don't even feel like a person sometimes, just a walking set of numbers, constantly adding, subtracting, and multiplying with no real end in sight. In the kitchen, I make a cup of coffee, the only luxury I can afford that feels like a small act of self-care. I linger over it, because once I get on the train to work, it's just the same monotonous grind. I eat the leftover pizza from last night for breakfast, because grocery shopping has been pushed back again. I haven't bought fresh vegetables in weeks. The fridge is full of cans, takeout containers, and half-empty boxes of pasta. I could make a meal, but it would take effort, and that takes time. I can't afford to waste time. I grab my bag and head out the door, trying not to think about how much my transit pass costs. How much my phone bill costs. How much everything costs. Each time I hand over money for something I need, it feels like I'm giving a piece of myself away. Every expense is a reminder that no matter how hard I try, I'm stuck in this cycle, always running, but never really getting anywhere. Work is no better. I sit at my desk, surrounded by people who don't seem to worry about money the way I do. Maybe they do, but they hide it better. I look at their clothes, their lunches, their trips to the coffee shop. How do they manage it? How do they pay for all of this? I sometimes wonder if they even notice the financial stress that weighs me down like an anchor. I've learned to hide my stress, too. I smile at my coworkers, laugh at the right moments, and nod when someone mentions something about a weekend getaway or a new gadget they bought. But inside, I'm calculating. I'm thinking about how much I'll need to cover the bills this month. I'm wondering if I can make the rent with a few extra shifts. I'm thinking about the $100 credit card payment looming over me like a deadline I can't escape. It's exhausting, always having to manage money like a puzzle that doesn't fit together. I'm always adjusting, reworking, cutting corners just to stay afloat. It's like I'm running on a treadmill, going nowhere, and every time I think I've caught up, the pace quickens, and I'm left trying to catch my breath. The worst part is that it feels like it's only going to get harder. Everything keeps getting more expensive: food, rent, transportation, even the smallest things, like toothpaste or shampoo. The world outside keeps moving forward, but I feel like I'm stuck in this holding pattern. My paycheck isn't stretching as far as it used to, and it's impossible to keep up. The numbers on the bills are only getting bigger, while my income stays stagnant. I try to tell myself that I'm doing the best I can, that I'm strong for making it through another day. But sometimes, it just feels like I'm running on empty. I haven't had a real vacation in years. I don't even know what it feels like to take a full day off without worrying about the consequences. I haven't been able to save for the future the way I thought I would. It seems like every time I take one step forward, something else comes up that drags me 2 steps back. There are days when I lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this is what my life is going to be forever. Will I always be chasing the next bill? Will I ever be able to plan for something bigger than just getting by? I used to dream about traveling the world, starting my own business, finding a career I loved. But those dreams feel far away now, like they belong to a version of me that doesn't exist anymore. It's not that I don't want them. It's just that the space between where I am and where I thought I'd be feels so impossibly vast. I try to stay hopeful. I remind myself that I'm young, that there's time to figure it out. But some days, it feels like the weight of everything is too much to carry. Every decision feels like it matters more than it should. Should I put more toward my savings, or should I pay off my credit card? Should I stay at this job, even though it's draining me, or take a risk and look for something better? It feels like I'm constantly stuck between two choices, the safe option that keeps me treading water, or the unknown that could either drown me or set me free. I want to believe in the possibility of change, of something better. But I also feel the heavy hand of reality pushing me back into the same routine, day after day. I think about the future and wonder what it will look like. Will I ever get ahead? Will I ever be able to live without the constant pressure of financial uncertainty hanging over me? It's hard to believe when the world feels like it's moving faster than I can keep up with. But then I remember that I'm still here, still pushing through each day, even when it feels like I'm barely keeping my head above water. And that, I think, is something worth holding on to. I don't know how long this struggle will last, but I know I'm not giving up yet. The bills, the worry, the doubt, they don't define me. They're just pieces of a bigger picture, a picture I'm still in the process of painting. Maybe one day I'll look back on all of this and see it as a stepping stone, a part of the story that led to something better. But for now, I just keep going, one day at a time, hoping that the future will be kinder to me than today. I wake up to the sound of my alarm blaring, the same familiar tone that's become my wake-up call to a world that feels increasingly heavy. It's not the kind of heavy that you feel in your body after a long day of physical labor. No, it's a different kind of weight, one that presses on your chest and makes your mind race before your feet even hit the floor. It's another morning where I'm thinking about money. What's due today? How can I stretch what little I have left to get through the next few days? The constant awareness of bills hanging over my head feels like a cloud that's permanently stationed above me, casting a shadow no matter how brightly the sun shines. I roll out of bed and shuffle into the kitchen. My apartment is small. I share it with 2 roommates to keep the rent manageable, but still, it feels cramped. We're all just trying to survive, our conversations often turning into long sighs about work, rent increases, and the rising cost of literally everything. Last night, I overheard Sarah talk about her latest shift at the coffee shop, and how they're trying to force her to work longer hours without raising her pay. She looked tired when she said it. We all look tired now, all of us, just trying to hold on. I make a quick breakfast, toast with peanut butter, something that won't break the bank. It's easy, filling, and doesn't require much thought. Sometimes I think about what it would be like to sit down at a cafe, order a latte with a scone, and not feel guilty about it. But that kind of luxury is long gone for me. I don't know when it happened, when it stopped being okay to treat yourself, even in the smallest of ways. Money, or the lack thereof, colors every decision I make. I choose to skip a social gathering or dinner with friends because I know it'll cost more than I can afford. I skip the doctor's appointment I've been putting off because I can't bear the thought of paying the copay. And forget about investing in hobbies or activities that used to make me feel alive. I used to love painting, but I haven't picked up a brush in months. I don't even have the time, nor the space to let myself enjoy it anymore. How can you justify spending money on art supplies when you're wondering if you'll have enough to pay rent next month? I try to push these thoughts out of my mind, telling myself that I'm just in a rough patch, that things will get better. But deep down, I don't believe that anymore. Things aren't going to magically get better. This is the reality I'm stuck with, this system that feels like it's built to keep me down. The wages don't keep up. It's frustrating, soul-crushing, really. The rent prices keep soaring higher while my paychecks seem to stay stagnant. I look at my salary and think, how did I get here? When did I become someone who has to carefully count every dollar and still feel like it's never enough? I used to have dreams. Big ones, too. I wanted to travel, to see the world, to build a career that made me feel proud, to find a place of my own, somewhere I could decorate with things that reflected my personality, not just what was affordable. But those dreams? They feel like they're getting further and further away. I postponed them for so long now that I'm not even sure if I remember what they looked like. It's not just about the money, it's about the exhaustion. The mental exhaustion of constantly being on edge, of wondering if this month will be the month where I won't be able to make ends meet. The anxiety that comes with opening my bank account, only to see that it's lower than I expected, or checking my email to see another bill I hadn't anticipated. It's about seeing friends talk about their vacations or new gadgets, while I'm scraping by on what's left in my wallet, calculating if I can afford gas to get to work next week. At work, the pressure is just as bad. I'm grateful to have a job, don't get me wrong, but it's the kind of job where you're not really appreciated, just used until you burn out. I'm an assistant at a marketing agency, constantly juggling tasks that aren't in my job description, answering emails, scheduling meetings, and helping with projects that never seem to end. My boss is nice enough, but she doesn't really get it. She doesn't understand what it's like to worry about your next paycheck, to struggle with the idea that even though you work hard, it might still not be enough. I try to remind myself that I'm young. That I have time. Time to build a career, to save, to figure things out. But the thing is, the system isn't built to make that easy. The cost of living keeps rising, while wages stagnate, and there's no room for real growth. I'm stuck in a cycle of paycheck-to-paycheck living, and it feels like the harder I work, the more exhausted I become, without ever really seeing the payoff. Sometimes, I wish I could quit everything. Walk away from it all. But where would I go? What would I do? The fear of falling deeper into debt keeps me chained to this job. The bills will keep coming, whether I'm ready for them or not. So, I cope however I can. I find small pleasures to hold on to. Maybe it's a long walk through the park, or binge watching an entire season of a show I've been meaning to catch up on. Sometimes, I call my mom. She always listens, always tries to comfort me, but she can't solve the problem. She's facing her own financial struggles, too, and I can't bring myself to burden her with mine. I've tried budgeting. I've tried saving. But there's only so much you can do when the costs of living keep creeping up, when you're working harder than ever, but your salary remains the same. What can I do when it feels like every step forward is met with 2 steps back? I tell myself that maybe one day, I'll make it. That one day, I'll find a way to break out of this cycle, to do something that feels like it's truly mine. But right now, that seems so far away. The pressure is all-consuming, and it's hard to see past today when tomorrow feels so uncertain. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll ever be able to afford the kind of life I imagined for myself. Maybe one day, things will change. But I can't rely on that hope alone anymore. I have to keep pushing forward, even when it feels impossible. I have to keep fighting for the dreams that I buried deep inside, even if it feels like they're slipping away with every passing day. But for now, I just get up, put on my work clothes, and go through the motions. Because that's what you do when you're stuck in the middle of a system that doesn't seem to care about you. Keep going, keep surviving, keep hoping for something better that always feels just out of reach. I wake up to the sound of my phone vibrating on the nightstand, the dim light of dawn creeping through the blinds. It's 7 a.m., and for a second, I just lie there, staring at the ceiling, not really ready to face the day. But I have no choice. My feet hit the floor, and the familiar weight of anxiety settles in my chest. I grab my phone. The first notification is from my bank, account balance $142.56. That's after I've already paid rent and a few of the essentials. The rent took up most of my paycheck this month, which means I'm stuck in a cycle of waiting until the next one comes in, hoping I can scrape by. I head to the bathroom, wash my face, brush my teeth, then get dressed in the same worn-out jeans and the only shirt that doesn't look too crumpled. It's a struggle to motivate myself every day. It's not the work that gets to me, it's the feeling that no matter how much I work, no matter how many hours I clock, I'm still stuck in a never-ending race where the finish line is always out of reach. By the time I make it to the kitchen, I don't even feel like making coffee. I open the cupboard and stare at the half-empty cereal box. There's not much left, but I pour some into a bowl anyway. It's a sad breakfast, but it's filling. Or, at least, it will be until lunch. But lunch feels far away. My apartment feels small these days, even though it's just me. It's cluttered in the corners with things I don't need but can't bring myself to throw away, and it never seems to be as clean as I want it to be. I used to dream about having a place where I could relax, a space that felt like home. But now, this apartment just feels like a reminder of everything I haven't been able to achieve. At work, it's the same routine. I answer emails, take calls, file reports, just enough to keep the wheels turning. But every time I look at the clock, I'm counting down to when I can leave. I feel guilty about it sometimes, like I'm not doing enough, not pushing myself hard enough. But the truth is, I'm so tired. Tired of worrying about the future, tired of constantly thinking about how I'll pay for things that are slowly creeping up, my student loans, my car insurance, my credit card bills, groceries, gas, everything. I never seem to have enough. I catch myself daydreaming, though. It's how I escape when I'm not physically escaping. I imagine what it would be like to just walk away from it all. To have the freedom to travel, to take a year off to figure things out. I used to want to start my own business, open a cafe or maybe a small bookstore, something that felt more fulfilling than the day-to-day grind. But that dream feels so far out of reach now. How can I even think about building something when I can barely cover my own expenses? It feels stupid to even hold on to that hope anymore. I've had to push those dreams so far back, sometimes so far that I wonder if I'll even remember them in the future. My friends are all talking about how they're saving for houses, starting families, going on vacations. And here I am, scraping together whatever I can for a weekend coffee with them. We don't talk about money. It's too uncomfortable. But I know they're doing better than I am. They don't understand the stress I'm under, the constant worry that I'm falling behind. The worst part is that I can't seem to break free. Expenses go up every year: rent, insurance, gas, food. Every time I think I've adjusted, something new comes up. Last month, my car broke down. That was $300 I didn't have. This month, I'm late on one of my credit card payments, which means more late fees piling up. I keep thinking that next month will be better, but it never is. And the worst part is that I can't get ahead. It feels like I'm in a hamster wheel, running and never getting anywhere. I can't save, I can't invest in myself, and I can't plan for a future that feels even remotely stable. I try to think of ways to make extra money, side gigs, freelance work, anything, but I'm already exhausted as it is. I don't know how people juggle multiple jobs, especially when it feels like you're already maxed out just trying to make the rent. The emotional toll is harder to quantify, but it's there. It's in the pit of my stomach every morning when I check my bank balance, the tightness in my chest when I realize I have to choose between buying groceries or paying for gas. It's in the quiet nights when I can't sleep because my mind is racing, replaying my financial mistakes and wondering how I got here. And it's in the moments when I think about the future and feel a creeping sense of dread. Will I ever be able to afford a life I actually want? Will I be stuck in this cycle forever? Sometimes, I wonder if it's all worth it. The constant grinding, the hours that stretch out into nothing, the feeling of being stuck in a system that seems rigged against me. I wonder if anyone else feels like this too. Or if I'm the only one who's barely hanging on, trying to juggle everything, always wondering where the next paycheck will come from. I try to cope the best I can. I spend some time with friends, talk to family when I can. But even then, there's always that underlying tension. I can't let them know how bad it is, not because they wouldn't understand, but because I don't want to feel like a failure. I don't want them to look at me with pity or concern. I don't want them to feel sorry for me. I try to remind myself that I'm doing my best. That at least I have a job. That at least I'm getting by. But sometimes it doesn't feel like enough. And I don't know how long I can keep pretending like it is. Some nights, I allow myself to think about what I would do if I had the money, the time, the freedom to truly live. I dream of traveling, of finding a place to call my own, of building something that means something. But right now, it feels like those dreams are locked in a cage I can't break out of. I wish I could tell you that I have hope, that everything will get better eventually. But the truth is, I don't know. I don't know what the future holds, and that uncertainty is terrifying. All I can do is keep going, keep working, and hope that one day I'll wake up and feel like I'm finally on the other side of this. But for now, I'm just trying to make it through the day. I keep telling myself that this is just a phase, that I'm building something for the future. But some days, that feels like a lie I tell myself to get through another endless cycle of bills and deadlines and anxiety. I just want to breathe again. I just want to live without this constant weight pressing down on me. But for now, all I can do is keep going. Keep going, even when it feels like I'm running in place, stuck in a system that doesn't care if I break. I just hope one day I'll be able to look back and say that I made it through. That I got out of this. But for now, I'm just trying to survive. I wake up every day with a pit in my stomach. It's not the kind of pit that fades with a cup of coffee or a few hours of sleep, it's the kind that lingers, a constant reminder that I'm caught in a loop I can't break free from. I roll over to check my phone, another text from the bank, another reminder that the bills are due. I didn't sleep well again, my mind racing through a dozen scenarios where I somehow fix everything, where the bills stop piling up faster than I can pay them, where the weight on my shoulders is lighter. But it's all a dream, an unreachable one. I know that, and yet I can't stop wishing for it. I've been working full-time since I graduated, just over 2 years ago now. Everyone told me it'd get better, that I'd figure it out, that I'd climb up the ladder eventually. But I'm still here, still stuck in a cycle that feels more like treading water than moving forward. The bills are always the same: rent, utilities, car payment, insurance, student loans, and then there are the smaller ones, the ones that sneak up on you when you least expect them: a friend's birthday, a last-minute doctor's visit, groceries that somehow cost $200 for the week, even when I'm only buying the bare minimum. I'm just trying to stay afloat, but everything is moving too fast. Everything costs more, and my paycheck doesn't stretch like it used to. Every time I think I've managed to save a little, maybe a few $100 for a rainy day, I'm hit with another expense. My car broke down last month, and that drained the savings I had been so proud of. I didn't even get to take the trip to visit my parents like I'd planned. Instead, I used the time off to scramble and deal with a repair bill that wiped me out, emotionally as much as financially. The truth is, I don't feel like I'm in control of anything. I plan my budget on Sundays, carefully categorizing every dollar, trying to squeeze just a little more out of my paycheck. I have spreadsheets and apps to track my spending. But the numbers never work out the way they're supposed to. I find myself choosing between things I should never have to choose between. Do I eat well this week and skip the gym membership, or do I eat on a tight budget and make sure I can keep my phone plan for one more month? The choices are small, but they feel huge. If I eat cheap now, I'll feel sluggish and worn down. If I cut my gym membership, it'll be harder to feel good about my body, my mental health. Either way, it feels like I'm giving up something that I need, but the choice has to be made, and I make it without thinking too much. There's no real space for reflection anymore. There's just surviving. It's not just the financial pressure that gets to me. It's the feeling of being trapped in a system that keeps getting harder to navigate, even as you try to play by the rules. Everything seems stacked against you. I didn't grow up with money, and the idea of being able to pay for an emergency without going into debt feels like a dream from someone else's life. I remember when I was younger, I thought being an adult meant having freedom to make decisions without constant worry, freedom to explore what I wanted, to take vacations, to have a nice dinner without checking the menu prices. But now, every decision feels calculated, like there's no room for spontaneity, no room for enjoyment. I feel like I'm always one missed paycheck away from disaster. One unplanned expense and my whole world could fall apart. Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing something wrong. Everyone around me seems to be doing just fine, right? Friends are buying houses, going on vacations, posting pictures of new gadgets and outfits they don't seem to think twice about. It feels like I'm missing out on something, like I'm the only one stuck in the grind, unable to move forward. I hate feeling jealous of them, but I do. I don't want to be the one left behind, the one who can't even afford a dinner out. But that's the reality of it. I don't have the freedom to spend in the way I want. I have to decide between investing in the future I can't afford yet or enjoying the present I'm barely surviving in. And in the end, it's always the present that loses. I've tried to talk to my friends about it, but they just don't get it. They offer solutions, things that sound simple to them: just get a second job, why don't you start a side hustle? But they don't understand that it's not just about working more. It's about the constant strain of knowing that every extra dollar you earn is just going to be eaten up by something else. A side hustle doesn't solve the bigger problem. It only amplifies it, because now there's even less time to think, to breathe, to just exist. It's hard to talk to my family about it, too. They've always been supportive, but they can't really help. They've got their own struggles. I'm the youngest, and I want to make them proud, to show them that I'm doing okay, that I'm building something for myself. But when I get on the phone with them, it's hard to explain how much I'm drowning in a sea of small financial burdens. They tell me to keep pushing, keep trying, that I'll get through it. And I want to believe them, but sometimes it feels like it's all slipping through my fingers, like the harder I try to grab onto something solid, the more everything shifts. There are moments, glimpses, really, when I let myself think about the future. The dreams I had when I was younger. The idea that someday I'd be able to travel, to have a career I was passionate about, to have a little nest egg put away for emergencies. It seems so distant now. I try to remind myself that I'm not alone in this, that this financial pressure is part of something bigger, something systemic. But even with that knowledge, it doesn't make the day-to-day feel any easier. It doesn't change the fact that I'm still stuck in this cycle, feeling like every dollar I earn just keeps slipping away faster than I can catch it. I cope with it in small ways. I take deep breaths when I pay the bills, when I look at my account balance and see that it's lower than I'd hoped. I remind myself that this isn't forever, even though it feels like it. But I also know that some things will have to wait. I won't be able to take that trip I dreamed of, at least not for a long time. I won't be able to live in the city I imagined, with the freedom to spend on little luxuries here and there. Those dreams are on hold, and maybe they will be for years. But I hold on to the hope that I'm building something, even if it's taking longer than I thought it would. I just need to keep breathing, keep going, even when it feels like nothing will change. Some days are better than others. Some days I'm filled with resolve, thinking that if I just keep working, just keep pushing, I'll break free. And maybe I will. But for now, it's just one day at a time, one decision at a time, with the weight of it all sitting heavily in my chest. I wish there was a way to make it easier, to make the future seem more attainable, less like a distant dream. But right now, I'm just trying to survive. I'm just trying to make it through the day, hoping that one day, maybe one day soon, there'll be a break in the storm. I wake up to the sound of my alarm, as usual, and I immediately feel it, the weight that presses down on my chest. The kind of weight that comes not from a lack of sleep, but from something deeper, something more constant. It's the feeling of living in a world where every dollar counts, but somehow, none of them ever seem to stretch far enough. I grab my phone off the nightstand, scrolling through emails. Most of them are bills, credit card statements, loan reminders, rent notifications. All things I can't afford to ignore, but none of them bring any relief. I know how this day will unfold, how the numbers will keep adding up, and how my bank account will keep shrinking no matter how hard I work. Sometimes I wish I could just stop checking altogether, but that would be like pretending the problem doesn't exist. And it always exists. I get out of bed, trying to push through the sense of dread that tries to sink its claws into me every morning. The apartment is small, cluttered, but at least it's mine. Or it will be, for a few more months until my lease is up. Rent is due next week, and I don't know how I'm going to pay it. It's one of those things that makes my stomach flip just thinking about it. I head to the kitchen to make breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast. It's the same meal I've had for weeks. The eggs are getting cheaper, the bread is too, but the taste doesn't change. I've learned to live with the fact that food doesn't need to be exciting anymore. As long as I eat something, it's enough. There's no room for luxuries, for a fun meal, for anything that would make me feel a little more human. That's how it feels, like I'm just surviving. I check my bank balance as I sip my coffee. The number is lower than I'd like to admit. Every month feels like I'm just scraping by. I've been putting off paying my credit card bill for weeks, trying to buy a little more time, but the interest keeps piling up. It's like a trap, and I'm constantly running in circles. Every decision feels like a compromise. Do I skip paying my car insurance this month to make sure I can eat? Do I cancel my phone plan just to avoid going into more debt? I head out for work, trying not to think too hard about the mountain of unpaid bills that are waiting for me when I get home. I can't afford a car, so I take the bus. Even then, I have to choose the cheaper route, which means longer rides and more transfers. I get there, eventually. On time, mostly. I've always been a little too focused on punctuality, a little too obsessed with doing everything perfectly. But lately, it's hard to keep up the act. At work, the hours stretch on, each one like a slow drag through the day. My job isn't bad, but it isn't great, either. It pays just enough to keep me from starving, but that's all. Every raise feels like a joke. I watch as my coworkers talk about their plans for vacations, new gadgets, nights out. I can't even remember the last time I went out with friends without constantly thinking about the cost. Even getting a coffee from the cafe down the street feels like a splurge I can't justify. The reality is, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and every small choice I make is based on which thing I can sacrifice to make it through the week. There are days when I can't stop thinking about the future. I used to have dreams, big ones, the kind that made me feel like I could do anything. I thought I'd travel, go to graduate school, start my own business. But those dreams have been shelved, tucked away in a corner of my mind I rarely visit anymore. The reality is, I can barely keep up with my rent and utilities. There's no room to save, let alone invest in anything that could make those dreams a reality. The future seems so far away, and it's hard to feel motivated when I'm so consumed by the present. The economic environment feels like a storm I can't outrun. Prices rise on everything: food, gas, rent, and wages. They don't rise nearly as fast. It's like a game of survival, one where the rules keep changing, and you're left trying to keep up while the rest of the world seems to move forward. I hear people talk about how great things are, how they're able to buy homes, start families, live comfortably. But all I see is a system that's stacked against me, and I feel like I'm constantly fighting an uphill battle. It's exhausting, to be honest. There are days when I just want to throw in the towel and say I'm done. But I can't afford that either. So I keep pushing. I work extra hours when I can, pick up freelance gigs that barely pay, but it's never enough. It's never enough to make me feel like I'm getting ahead. I try to tell myself that things will get better, that eventually, I'll get a promotion or a new job that pays more. I dream about a life where I don't have to worry about every little expense. A life where I can actually breathe without calculating every purchase. But the truth is, I'm stuck. I don't have the luxury of waiting for things to change, I have to make it work now. I have to survive today. And tomorrow. I cope by distracting myself. I scroll through social media and look at pictures of places I'll never visit, things I'll never buy. I watch TV shows where characters live in beautiful apartments and take spontaneous trips, and I remind myself that it's just entertainment. It's not real. But sometimes it feels like it is, like they're living the life I'm stuck dreaming about. There's also the guilt. I feel guilty when I buy something small for myself, like a new book or a treat from the store. It's not much, but it feels like an indulgence, like I'm wasting money I don't have. But at the same time, I'm so tired. I'm tired of constantly depriving myself. I tell myself that I deserve this, but then I worry about how I'll make ends meet when I get home. I try not to think about the future too much. It's easier that way. But sometimes, when I'm alone and the world is quiet, I can't help but wonder how long I'll be stuck in this cycle. Will I always be one paycheck away from disaster? Will I ever get to the point where I can live without this constant pressure hanging over me? I want to believe that I can make it, that things will get better eventually, but I don't know. I can't know. For now, I just take it day by day. I make the best choices I can, try to keep my head above water, and hold on to the fragments of dreams I haven't completely let go of yet. Maybe one day, I'll look back at this time and see it as the moment before everything changed. Maybe. But today, all I can do is keep going. Keep surviving. And hope that, somehow, I'll find a way to break free from this trap before it crushes me. I wake up every morning with the sound of my phone alarm blaring in my ears, the harsh light of the screen making me squint. Another day. Another round of trying to make it all work. I've been awake for a while, but it's the dread that holds me in bed, not the comfort. Every morning, I think about all the little things I need to juggle. The rent due next week. The loan payment that's coming up, and how it feels like I'm paying for a mistake that I can't undo. The groceries I need to buy but don't have the money for, and how much I dread looking at the bank account. I can already feel the tension settling into my neck, and it's only 7 a.m. The truth is, I don't remember the last time I woke up feeling genuinely relaxed. There's always something weighing on me, always something I'm worried about. It's not just the bills. It's the whole system, the fact that no matter how hard I try, things never seem to get better. It's like I'm running on a treadmill that's going faster and faster, and I'm just trying to keep up. But I'm getting tired, and it feels like I'm slipping. Work is another thing. I used to love the idea of working hard, moving up, and building a future. But now, it feels like I'm just working to survive. I have a decent job for someone my age, decent enough, but it's not enough to cover all my costs. At the end of each month, I'm left stretching every penny, hoping for a break that never seems to come. And when you're already living paycheck to paycheck, the tiniest unexpected expense can feel like a catastrophe. The car needs new tires? That's a whole week of ramen. The phone bill goes up a few dollars? Guess I'll skip the gym for the month. Every small change feels like a weight, adding another layer of stress to my daily routine. I get home from work and immediately collapse on the couch. I barely have the energy to make dinner, something simple, like pasta with sauce, maybe some frozen vegetables. It's not glamorous, but it's food. I remind myself to feel grateful that I have something to eat, even if it's not what I really want. It's just one of those things, food is fuel, not pleasure. These days, pleasure feels like a luxury I can't afford. It's strange how quickly life can shift from dreams and hopes to survival mode. I remember being a teenager, full of ideas about what I wanted to do with my life. I had this image of myself working in a creative field, traveling the world, and making a real impact somehow. I wanted to write, to take risks, to make art. But those dreams feel distant now, as if they belong to a version of me that's not here anymore. Sometimes, I catch myself wishing I could go back and talk to that younger version of me, to tell them how hard things will be. Maybe I would have told them to save more money, to prepare for the inevitable disappointment of seeing how expensive everything gets, how every attempt at something bigger is met with a wall of financial reality. The hardest part isn't even the work itself. It's that everything costs more now. Rent is up again this year. Gas prices go up and up. The cost of living is so high that I'm drowning in it, and no matter how hard I try, I'm always just keeping my head above water. When I was younger, I thought adulting would be about freedom, about being independent and making choices. But now, every choice feels like a calculation. Do I pay the electricity bill today, or do I buy gas so I can get to work? Do I skip the coffee to save $1 or spend the little I have left on a small treat, just to remind myself that I'm still human? I try to rationalize it. People always say it gets better, that this is just a phase. But it doesn't feel like a phase. It feels like a cycle. One where the expenses grow faster than my income, no matter how much overtime I take, no matter how hard I try to cut back. It feels like there's no way out, no escape. And honestly, I don't know how people make it. How do they afford to save for retirement, or even just for an emergency? How do they buy a house? I used to think those things were possible, but now they feel like fantasies. I've put off dreams I never thought I'd have to. I was supposed to travel more, explore, see new places, write stories, live a little. Instead, I'm saving what I can, scrimping on luxuries I never used to think twice about, like taking a sick day. It's amazing how quickly your standards lower when your options are limited. Now, a night of Netflix with a cup of tea feels like the highlight of my week. I wonder sometimes if I've just gotten used to it, this constant low-level anxiety, like it's become part of my daily rhythm. It's hard to tell what's real anymore, whether I'm just adapting to this low-level stress or if I'm actually becoming numb to it. But I still hold on to hope. Somewhere deep down, I tell myself that things will get better. That I'll find a way to get ahead, to save, to live a life that isn't entirely driven by how much money is left in my bank account. Maybe I'll get a promotion at work, or maybe I'll figure out a side hustle that works. Maybe I'll get lucky, and a sudden opportunity will land in my lap. But even as I think about it, I know how naive it sounds. Life doesn't just give you a break. But you hold on to these dreams, no matter how small they seem, because if you let go of them entirely, what else is there? I don't talk to people much about how I'm feeling. I don't think anyone would understand. The pressure to succeed is so ingrained in me that admitting I'm struggling feels like admitting I'm failing. And I can't fail, not yet, not when there's so much left to do, so many things I haven't tried. But the weight of this constant struggle is heavy, and I don't know how much longer I can pretend that it's all okay. I think about my future sometimes, how I don't want to be stuck in the same place, making the same sacrifices, forever. But I don't know how to change it. It feels like I'm caught in a system that's built for me to fail. I keep trying to climb, trying to make progress, but the mountain is steep, and the summit feels farther away than ever. Maybe one day, I'll look back and realize that I made it through this. That somehow, against all odds, I figured it out. But right now, it feels like survival is all I'm doing. And I'm not sure when or how I'll get to the point where I don't have to feel like this every day. But for now, I just keep going. Even if it's only for one more day. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. I wake up to the sound of my phone vibrating across the nightstand, my alarm, but also a reminder that the day has begun and the weight of another 24 hours of worrying is right behind it. It's barely 7 a.m., and I'm already doing mental math in my head: how much is left in my account, how much I'll need for rent in a week, how I'm going to cover the cost of groceries when my bank balance is already staring back at me with barely enough for the next few days. These are the first thoughts that hit me every morning. And as much as I try to remind myself that it doesn't have to be this way, deep down I know it's a broken record repeating itself. The world feels too big and too fast for someone like me, someone who is caught in this never-ending cycle of working hard, spending hard, and never catching up. I'm 24. Just starting to get my feet under me, or, at least, that's what I keep telling myself. But every time I look at my paycheck, it's like I'm moving backward instead of forward. I used to dream big. I used to think that if I worked hard enough, if I just kept grinding, things would eventually turn around. But that optimism is starting to fade, replaced by a deep, gnawing sense of fear and exhaustion. Every job I take is just another step on a treadmill that never stops. I don't even know what the end goal is anymore. I know I need a stable life, but even that feels like a fantasy these days. I've been in this financial hole for longer than I care to admit. My first credit card bill hit me like a ton of bricks, $1,200. I thought it was just the interest rate, or the fees piling up, but no, it was my own overspending, my inability to track what was slipping away. I remember sitting on my bed, looking at that bill, feeling like I was suffocating in the middle of my small apartment. It's a modest place, in a modest part of town. I didn't expect luxury, but I didn't expect this constant dread either. The rent is due next week, and I still haven't saved up enough to cover it. I've already taken on a few side gigs, hoping to make a dent in the gap, but with every new task I pick up, it feels like I'm barely treading water. I constantly hear about people my age living their best lives, traveling, buying new clothes, going out to restaurants without thinking twice about the check. Sometimes I wonder how they do it. How they afford to live in a world where inflation keeps pushing everything higher, groceries, gas, bills, yet wages seem to be stuck in place. I've even stopped asking for things I want. Birthdays? Forget about it. My friends are great, but I know they have their own financial struggles, and I never want to burden anyone with mine. I try to buy a coffee here and there to make myself feel normal, to feel like I'm part of something. But then I get that sinking feeling when I check my bank account after a small treat, wondering if I've made a mistake. Is it worth it? Does that tiny indulgence justify the anxiety I feel later? There's a part of me that wants to scream when I see all these ads on social media showing influencers traveling the world or people sharing their lavish weekends. There's an undercurrent of guilt that bubbles up, even though I know they're living a very different reality than mine. It's hard not to feel like something is wrong with me, like I'm the only one who hasn't figured it out. But deep down, I know that these curated images are not real. And yet, they still make me feel less than. My emotional well-being is frayed. I've learned to hide the stress from the people around me, because who wants to be the person always complaining about money? But it's a constant undercurrent, this fear that one day the well will run dry. I can't escape it, and it's starting to show. There are nights when I can't sleep, my mind racing with bills, calculations, the fear of not being able to pay for something I've already used. The guilt of living paycheck to paycheck eats at me in ways I never anticipated. I can feel the weight of that guilt pressing down on my chest every time I lie awake, knowing I haven't made any real progress in months. And then there's the crushing weight of uncertainty about the future. Every decision feels like a gamble. I want to save, but there's no extra to save. I want to invest in my future, but how can I when I'm barely keeping up with today? I think about moving to a new city for work, where the opportunities might be better, but then I wonder if I'll just be trading one set of problems for another. And I think about my dreams, the things I used to care about, writing a book, traveling the world, taking time off to just breathe. But those dreams feel distant now, like they belong to someone else. They're the things you think about when you're a kid, not when you're grown up and drowning in a sea of financial obligations. It's not that I don't want to be responsible. I do. I want to have a cushion, a safety net, the kind of stability I never had growing up. But I'm starting to think that's something only a few people ever really get to experience. The rest of us just hustle, keep our heads down, and do our best not to sink under the weight of it all. Maybe that's the reality for people in my generation. Maybe we're all just working as hard as we can and hoping to make it through the next round. Some days, I think about what it would feel like to be free of this pressure. What would it be like to have a week off to clear my head, or to plan for something I really want instead of something I need? I haven't had a real vacation in years. Every time I think about taking time off, it's like I hear the ticking of a clock, reminding me how much more expensive it's become to live in this world. I try to cope with all of this by distracting myself. I scroll through social media, watch shows to escape, try to make myself feel better with small moments of pleasure. But it's all just a band-aid over a wound that never really heals. Every day is the same cycle, and I don't know when it will break. Some days, I feel strong, like I can take on anything. Other days, I just want to pull the covers over my head and ignore the whole world. But then I think about the future. I think about what's waiting for me if I can just keep going, if I can just make it past this moment. I don't know what that looks like, but I have to believe that something will change. The alternative is too painful to imagine. Maybe, just maybe, things will get better, and I'll have the chance to live the life I've been dreaming of, where money doesn't dictate my worth, where I can live freely, without this constant pressure hanging over me. Until then, I keep going. I keep pushing through, hoping that one day I'll look back at this chapter of my life and see it as the beginning of something better. I have to. I don't know what else to do. I wake up to the sound of my alarm, a familiar buzz I'm so used to by now that I hardly notice it. The room is still dark, even though it's already 7 a.m. I reach over and hit snooze. 5 more minutes of peace. I let myself sink back into the sheets, feeling the weight of the world on my chest. 5 minutes later, I groggily roll out of bed and check my phone, not really expecting anything new. It's become routine at this point, checking the bank app to see if any miracle has occurred overnight. But nothing has changed. My balance is just as low as it was yesterday. Every time I open that app, I feel like I'm staring into a void. Every month, I fight to make ends meet. Every paycheck gets swallowed up before I even have a chance to breathe. Rent, utilities, car payments, insurance, student loans, they all line up in front of me like hungry mouths. And I feed them, of course. But somehow, it's never enough. I stumble into the bathroom to brush my teeth and stare at my reflection in the mirror. I look tired, worn out. Not in the way that makes you feel accomplished, but in the way that makes you question whether or not you're going to make it through another week. The world around me is moving, but I'm stuck. Stuck in this never-ending cycle where the costs of living continue to climb, but the income remains stubbornly fixed. I remember when I first started working at my current job. I was excited, hopeful. I thought that a steady paycheck would solve everything, that I could finally start to build the life I've always wanted. But somewhere along the way, it all started slipping through my fingers. There are days when I feel like I'm drowning, like I'm trying to catch my breath and there's no air. The smallest things I used to take for granted, now feel like luxuries. A coffee from the cafe down the street? That's a $4 decision that's too expensive right now. A night out with friends? I can barely afford a meal at home, let alone a drink at a bar. And forget about the occasional weekend trip or buying something I actually want. These days, I can barely even afford to buy things I need. So, I've learned to be resourceful. I use coupons, hunt for sales, clip discounts off every grocery item, and make meals from what's left in the fridge. I'm not complaining about it, I know how to make do. But it's the constant calculation that drains me. Every decision feels like a balancing act, a game where the rules are always changing, and it's hard to keep up. Every week, I sit down and go over my finances, which feels like staring into a pit of anxiety. I try to set aside a little for savings, but it's like trying to fill a bucket with holes. Each time I think I'm making progress, an unexpected expense pops up, the car breaks down, the heating bill is higher than expected, or the bank charges me a fee because my balance dipped below a certain amount. I think about the future, and it feels like looking at a blurry horizon. There are dreams, of course. I want to travel. I want to own a home someday. I want to not feel like every month is a struggle to survive rather than live. I want to go back to school, maybe start my own business, but the thought of even trying to take on that kind of financial burden seems laughable right now. I've put so many dreams on hold. I think back to when I was younger, when I thought adulthood would be full of possibilities. I imagined a life where I'd have the freedom to choose what I wanted, where my time wouldn't be dictated by bills and obligations. But now, as a young adult, I feel like I'm caught in a trap. The more I try to climb out, the more I get sucked back down. And it's not just the money, it's the stress that comes with it. Some days, I feel like I'm carrying a weight on my shoulders that no one can see. I smile at work, make small talk with colleagues, and try to keep up appearances. But inside, there's a constant hum of anxiety. I've stopped going to therapy because I can't afford it. I stopped going to the gym because the membership feels like a luxury now. I keep saying I'll take care of myself later, once I've paid this off, once I've saved enough. But it's always later, and later never comes. My social life has changed, too. I used to enjoy spontaneous get-togethers, meeting friends for coffee or grabbing dinner after work. Now, I have to pick and choose carefully who I spend time with, and even then, I'm always calculating the cost in my head. Can I afford this? Can I pay my bills if I do this? If I go, can I justify the expense to myself? I feel like I'm constantly walking a tightrope, trying to balance my hopes and dreams with the harsh reality of the world around me. The things that once seemed possible now seem like distant goals, always just out of reach. I feel like I've been waiting for a breakthrough, for that big moment when everything changes, but it never comes. It's like I'm stuck in a waiting room, hoping for a door to open, but nothing ever does. I tell myself that things will get better. Maybe I just need to work harder, be smarter, save more. But sometimes, I wonder if that's even enough. The economy keeps shifting beneath my feet. Jobs that once offered stability are now precarious, and the cost of living keeps rising. I feel like I'm running in place, expending all this energy but never moving forward. So, I cope. I focus on the small wins, the things I can control. I remind myself that it's okay to be where I am. That it's okay to take small steps. I've had to let go of some of my expectations for myself. Maybe that trip to Europe will have to wait. Maybe I'll need to put off going back to school. Maybe I'll have to be okay with living in this tiny apartment for a little longer than I imagined. I've learned that success doesn't always look like what I thought it would. It's not always about big leaps or dramatic change. Sometimes it's about surviving. It's about getting through the next day, the next paycheck, the next bill. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll ever make enough to stop worrying. But I keep going. Every day, I get up and do the best I can. Maybe that's all any of us can do. I wake up early. Too early. The kind of early where your mind isn't quite awake, but the reality of the day is already seeping in. I glance at my phone, 5:45 a.m. I'm too tired to be awake, but I know I have to get up. The day won't wait, and neither will the bills. I roll over and reach for my glasses, the ones I barely use except for when I'm at home, too worn out to even care about my appearance. I check my bank balance, and my stomach drops. Another day closer to the end of the month and the numbers keep shrinking. The rent is due in 5 days, and that's a number I can't ignore, no matter how much I'd like to pretend it's not there. I take a deep breath and sit up. My room is small, cramped even. The walls are thin, and I can hear the sounds of the city outside, the rush of cars, the distant hum of life that feels so far away from where I am. I can't afford to move. Not now. Not ever, it seems. I look around at my few belongings, a second-hand desk, a mattress on the floor, clothes shoved into a corner, and books stacked on a shelf. It's not much, but it's mine, or it will be, as long as I can make rent this month. I pull myself out of bed and head to the kitchen. A cup of coffee sounds like the bare minimum today. It's been the same for the past few weeks. Nothing extravagant, nothing special. Just enough to get me through the day, through the hours where I try to block out the pressure, even though it's always there, hanging over me like a shadow I can't escape. I check my credit card balance while I wait for the coffee to brew. It's embarrassing, honestly. It's gotten to the point where I can't even remember the last time I made a full payment. I've been scraping by, paying the minimum, hoping I can avoid getting hit with any more interest. Every time I check, it feels like I'm sinking a little deeper, and it's hard to stop myself from thinking that maybe I'll never get out of this hole. I don't have time to feel sorry for myself, though. I need to get to work. There's no other option. I take the bus every morning, my car broke down months ago, and I can't afford the repairs, let alone a new one. Even the bus costs more than it should. I try to find ways around it, like taking a longer route with fewer transfers, but at the end of the day, it's all the same. The cost of transportation keeps rising, and so do the costs of everything else. It's funny, in a way. I remember a time when I thought I could do it all. I had dreams, big ones. I wanted to travel, go to grad school, start a business. Now, those dreams feel like nothing more than distant stars, glimmering, but unreachable. I can barely afford a night out with friends, let alone a vacation or the luxury of not worrying about where my next meal will come from. At work, I try to focus, but it's hard when my mind is constantly calculating, constantly wondering how I'm going to make ends meet. I have a decent job, at least, it's a job, but it doesn't pay nearly enough. I see people around me buying houses, talking about vacations, and I feel like I'm stuck in a loop that I can't break. I don't even have health insurance. I had to drop it because I couldn't afford the premium. So now, I just cross my fingers and hope nothing goes wrong. The hardest part is when people ask how I'm doing. Are you okay? They'll say. And I want to be honest, to tell them that no, I'm not okay. But I can't. I can't tell them about the sleepless nights where I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'm going to pay rent. I can't tell them about the panic that grips me when I see another bill in the mail, knowing I don't have the money for it. I can't tell them that I feel trapped, like I'm drowning in a system that doesn't care if I sink. And then there's the guilt. The guilt of not being able to live the way I imagined. I try to tell myself that I'm doing the best I can, but it doesn't always feel like enough. I've stopped buying new clothes. I don't go out to eat anymore. I've canceled all my subscriptions. All those small luxuries are gone. But it doesn't make a difference. The bills keep coming. The expenses keep growing. I'm always behind, and it's hard to see a way out. Sometimes, I sit alone in my room and just cry. Not because I'm hopeless, but because it's exhausting. I try to think of a future where I'm not constantly battling to stay afloat, but it feels so far away. I think about what it would be like to not have to worry about money every single day. It's a nice thought, but the truth is, I don't know if I'll ever get there. I try to hold on to the little things that bring me comfort. A cup of coffee on a quiet morning. A good book before bed. The rare occasion when I can afford to go out with friends. I try to savor those moments because I know they're few and far between. But I can't ignore the reality. I'm stuck in a system where expenses rise faster than income. I'm constantly making decisions about what to sacrifice, about what to skip, and about what to hold on to. Every choice feels like it matters, like it could be the difference between keeping my head above water or sinking. Some nights, I lie awake wondering what it would be like to not have to think about money. To not have to choose between paying rent and paying off debt. To not feel like I'm always scrambling, always chasing a paycheck that never quite catches up to the bills. I wonder what my life would be like if I didn't have to live like this. What could I do with all the energy I spend just trying to survive? What could I achieve if I wasn't constantly behind? But I don't know if that future is ever going to come. It feels like the more I work, the further away it gets. I postponed my dreams, my plans, my hopes for so long that I'm starting to wonder if they'll ever become a reality. I tell myself to stay hopeful, that it will get better, that one day things will shift. But hope is hard to hold on to when the world feels like it's against you, when the numbers on the screen don't add up and the weight on your shoulders grows heavier each day. I try to keep going, though. What else can I do? I wake up every day, step into the world, and try to survive. I keep working, keep budgeting, keep hoping that someday, somehow, things will get better. But for now, all I can do is keep moving. Keep swimming in the sea of bills and debt, hoping that the shore isn't too far away. I wake up to the same old buzz of my alarm, dragging me from a restless sleep. It's 6:30 a.m., and the first thing I do is grab my phone to check the balance in my bank account. I don't know why I do it. Maybe it's a form of self-torture, but I feel like I have to know. I tell myself I'll be careful today, that I'll make smarter choices, but the truth is, I already know the numbers aren't going to magically change. They're always low, never enough. I roll out of bed, trying to shake off the dread that feels so familiar. Another day. Another round of doing my best to make it all work. There's always something I need to pay, some bill I need to keep track of. And no matter how hard I try, it feels like I'm never getting ahead. The rent is due in 2 weeks, and I'm already stressing about how to cover it. I don't know why, but the rent is the one thing that gets to me the most. It's the anchor that makes me feel like I'm constantly sinking. Work isn't helping. It's not a bad job, but it's just a job. It doesn't bring me joy anymore. It's just a means to an end. I work long hours to get by, but it feels like I'm barely scraping the surface. I look around, and it's like everyone else has figured something out that I haven't. They all seem to have it together, taking vacations, buying new clothes, or doing things I can't even dream about because I'm too busy trying to stay afloat. There's this crushing feeling in my chest, like I'm stuck in this endless loop, always one step behind. I know people always say, you just need to work harder or it gets better, just hang in there. but honestly, I'm not sure how much harder I can work. I've been working so much overtime lately that I've stopped remembering what free time feels like. And yet, the numbers never quite add up. Each month, it feels like my expenses grow faster than my income. I'm tired of cutting corners, of telling myself I'll just eat the same thing for dinner for the third night in a row because I can't afford anything else. The small things start to add up, too. The subscription I forgot to cancel last month. The unexpected trip to the doctor. The car breaking down when I had just enough to cover rent and groceries. The little emergencies are the worst, because there's no room in the budget for them. I end up charging things on my credit card, hoping I'll have the money to pay it off later, but I know I won't. I've gotten used to living in debt. It's like I'm constantly carrying this invisible weight, and I don't know how to get rid of it. And then there's the constant anxiety that lives in the pit of my stomach. It never fully goes away. It's always there, gnawing at me. I worry about what will happen if I lose my job, or if my hours get cut. I worry about what's going to happen when my student loan payments come back. I worry about getting older, about not having enough to retire, or even just to live comfortably someday. The future feels like a distant dream that's slowly slipping away, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. I used to have so many dreams. I wanted to travel, to write, to experience the world in a way that felt meaningful. I thought I'd be able to build a life where I could be creative, where I'd have the freedom to take risks. But now, everything is about survival. There's no room for big dreams when you're constantly trying to manage your daily struggles. I tell myself that someday I'll get back to writing, that maybe when things settle down, I'll pick up a book and start working on a project. But I can't remember the last time I had the energy to even think about it. It's hard to admit, but sometimes I feel like I've given up. Not in a dramatic, all-at-once way, but in these little, quiet ways. I don't go out with friends anymore because I can't afford to. I don't take time for myself, because there's always something else to pay for, something I should be doing instead. I used to be someone who valued experiences, who believed in making memories, but now all I seem to do is work, eat, sleep, and repeat. I don't know how to break the cycle. I used to believe that if I just worked hard enough, I'd be able to make it, to find financial freedom, to be able to do the things I want to do without constantly worrying about money. But now, I'm starting to think that's a lie. The system is rigged, and no matter how hard I try, it feels like I'm still trapped in it. Everyone says to live within your means, but what if your means are too small to live on? What if every decision feels like a compromise? Do I get the bus pass or fill up my car with gas? Do I skip lunch today to make sure I can afford next week's groceries? Every choice feels like a trade-off, and none of them are good enough. I've had to put off so many things I thought I'd be able to do by now. I don't remember the last time I treated myself to something nice, just for the hell of it. I wanted to go back to school and finish my degree, but the idea of taking on more debt makes me feel sick. I wanted to move to a new city, start fresh, and maybe even explore a new career. But those things feel impossible when you're constantly worried about making it through the next month. It's like I'm stuck, not just in the present, but in a future I can't seem to escape. Sometimes, I wonder if I'll ever get out of this. I wonder if I'll always feel like I'm drowning, always on the edge of something just out of reach. I wonder if this is just my life now, a series of paychecks that never quite cover what I need, always trying to make the impossible possible. And then there's the guilt. I feel guilty for not being better at handling my finances, for not being one of those people who can balance it all, who can find a way to live comfortably and still save for the future. I feel guilty for not being able to make the kind of life I imagined for myself. But I keep pushing through. I don't know what else to do. I try to hold on to the idea that things will get better, that eventually, all this hard work will pay off. But right now, that feels like the longest of long shots. Some days, I'm not even sure how I'll make it to the end of the week. I wish I could be more hopeful, but right now, hope feels like a luxury I can't afford. So instead, I just keep going. One day at a time. I wake up to the sound of my alarm, like a harsh reminder that another day has begun. The world outside my window is still dark, but my phone screen already has messages, work stuff, reminders to pay bills, and a few notifications that are just noise. I'm used to it by now. But the first thought in my mind, always, is the same: how am I going to make it through this month? There's something almost surreal about living in a time when everything feels like it's moving at a pace that doesn't care if I'm ready or not. The costs of life keep climbing: groceries, gas, rent, and every paycheck feels like it disappears before I even get a chance to catch my breath. The gap between what I earn and what I need keeps widening, and no matter how much I stretch myself, I feel like I'm being pulled apart. I'm 25, but I already feel like I'm living on borrowed time. I got my degree, but that piece of paper doesn't seem to have opened as many doors as I thought it would. My job is okay, not great. The kind of work where I'm just a cog in a machine, doing my best to hit targets, but never really feeling like I'm going anywhere. There's a part of me that still wants to believe in the idea of hard work paying off, but the other part of me knows it's just a line they feed you to keep you going. Because no matter how hard I work, the bills keep coming, and the paychecks are barely enough to cover them. I drag myself out of bed, the cool air of the morning biting at my skin, and I pull on whatever I can find in my closet. Nothing fancy, but it'll do. I glance in the mirror as I brush my teeth, trying to find something positive in my reflection. But there's that tiredness in my eyes, that weight in my shoulders that's been there for months. It's like I'm carrying invisible bags full of worry, and every day the load just gets heavier. I grab a piece of toast on my way out the door. I can't remember the last time I actually cooked a meal for myself. Maybe I'm too tired after work, or maybe it's just easier to eat out, even though it costs more than if I'd just made something at home. But the thing is, cooking takes time, and I don't have much of that left. Between working, trying to make ends meet, and feeling guilty about not doing more with my free time, it's easier to just grab something quick and be on my way. The car's engine starts with a low hum, and I drive through the streets, watching the world wake up. There's something strange about it: the world keeps turning, people keep going about their lives, but I feel like I'm standing still. Like I'm trying to run a race but never seem to gain any ground. I can't remember the last time I felt genuinely optimistic about my future. There's always that voice in the back of my head reminding me that I'm barely making it. Some days, I wonder if I'm ever going to get out of this cycle. Work is just as draining as I expected. There's always something else to do, another project to finish, another meeting to sit through. I try to stay focused, but my mind keeps drifting. What's the point of all this? I know it's supposed to be building my career, but the truth is, I don't feel like I'm building anything. I feel stuck. My dream of having a career that excites me, that challenges me, feels like it's fading further into the background. It's hard to dream about a future when the present feels like it's just one long string of survival. On the way home, I make a stop at the grocery store. I've learned to shop with a calculator in my hand, carefully tallying up the cost of each item before it even hits the counter. It's ridiculous, but if I don't do it, I end up having to put things back. I've learned to avoid the aisles with things I want, but don't need. No more snacks. No more fancy drinks. If I'm being honest, the idea of buying something just because I like it seems like a luxury I can't afford anymore. It's this feeling of being constantly weighed down that wears on me. The numbers don't add up. I don't even need to look at my bank account to know that. It's the little things, the days when I skip meals to save money, when I pass on hanging out with friends because I know I'll be too broke to make it through the week after. I can't even remember the last time I went on vacation. Hell, I can't even remember the last time I took a full day off. There's always something that needs to be done, some obligation that pulls me in different directions. The worst part? I'm scared of what's coming next. I hear people talk about the economy, about inflation, the housing crisis, student loans, and I can feel my chest tighten. I know that things aren't going to get easier anytime soon. They haven't been easy for a while now, and I'm not sure when that will change. The truth is, I'm just trying to hold on, hoping that something, anything, will give me a break. But there's that sinking feeling, deep in my gut, that maybe this is it. Maybe this is just what life is going to be like now, scrambling from one month to the next, never really catching my breath, always afraid of falling behind. Some nights, when I lay in bed and stare at the ceiling, I think about my dreams, the things I wanted to do when I was younger, the places I wanted to go, the career I thought I'd have by now. It feels like they're so far out of reach. I wanted to write, to travel, to build a life that didn't feel like it was defined by bills and stress. But now, it's just a distant memory, a reminder of what could have been. I postponed everything. My dream of writing a novel? On hold. My desire to live in a city that feels alive and full of possibility? Maybe someday, but not today. Not when rent alone is a chunk of my paycheck. Not when every time I think I can take a step forward, something else comes up to pull me back. And yet, even in all of this, I can't quite give up hope. I can't completely lose faith in the idea that there's something better out there for me. I don't know how or when things will change, but I know they have to. I just have to keep moving forward, even if it feels like I'm moving in place most days. Maybe one day I'll be able to breathe a little easier. Maybe I'll get that break I've been waiting for. Or maybe I'll finally be able to make my dreams happen, the ones I've kept tucked away for so long. But for now, all I can do is keep going. One foot in front of the other. Trying to find moments of peace in the chaos. Holding on to the hope that, somehow, I'll make it through. It's hard to explain to people who don't feel it, how heavy it is. How, when you wake up every day, the weight of it is there, pressing on your chest like a stone that never moves. Maybe it's the endless cycle of expenses growing faster than income, or maybe it's the constant, gnawing feeling that something isn't right, that the game's rigged, and no matter how hard you try, you're stuck on the losing side. I try to explain this to my friends sometimes, but they don't get it. Most of them are still in college, or they have parents who can help them out when things get tight. Some have already managed to snag decent-paying jobs that don't make them constantly feel like they're fighting to stay afloat. But I'm in a different place. I'm in my mid-20s now, and while everyone else is talking about their plans, their futures, and how excited they are about the next chapter, I feel like I'm treading water. Every day, I wake up to check my bank balance, and it's always the same, just enough to make it to the next payday, maybe with a few bucks left over for coffee. But the rent is due, the student loans are due, the insurance is due, the electricity bill is creeping higher than it's ever been, and that's just the essentials. Then there are the smaller things that sneak up on you, like the parking ticket I forgot to pay, the grocery run that cost more than I expected, the medical copay I didn't plan for. It all adds up, and it feels like I'm constantly catching up but never quite getting ahead. I try to stay positive, or at least pretend to. I tell myself that everyone has to start somewhere, that it won't always be like this. But some days, when the weight of it all presses down too hard, it's hard to believe that. It's like I'm living in a world where the rules are different for everyone else. Everyone seems to have their shit together, except for me. I never used to feel this way. When I was younger, I imagined adulthood would be full of possibilities, of making choices based on what I wanted, not just based on what I could afford. I imagined having a career that I loved, the freedom to travel, the chance to do something meaningful with my time. But now it feels like those dreams are slipping further away. Every decision I make is governed by how much money I have, and it's a constant balancing act. Do I pay the car insurance bill this month, or do I put off getting new tires because that's cheaper? Do I skip a meal to make sure I can fill the tank with gas? Do I take on another credit card to cover the gap, hoping I can pay it off before the interest kicks in? I can't even remember the last time I went out with friends without feeling a pang of guilt afterward. Sure, we'll go out for drinks or grab a bite to eat, but in the back of my mind, I'm always calculating, how much is this going to cost? Can I afford this? What will I have to sacrifice next week to make sure I don't end up short? And then when I go home, I stare at the bills, trying to figure out how to juggle them all without falling behind. It's exhausting, but it's also the kind of exhaustion that seeps into your bones and doesn't let go. It's the kind that makes everything feel like a chore, that sucks the joy out of even the smallest things. Sometimes, I just want to breathe. I want to make a decision without worrying about how much it will cost me. I want to feel free again. But every day feels like a reminder that I'm not. I'm tied to this grind, this endless cycle of working, paying bills, and struggling to stay afloat. And the worst part is that it's all I've known for the past few years. It feels like I'm caught in a system where the harder I work, the less I have to show for it. The cost of living keeps rising, but my salary hasn't budged in months. Inflation eats away at the few comforts I once had, and I watch as the things that seemed possible, travel, saving up for a house, starting a family, become fantasies. I can't remember the last time I felt genuinely hopeful about the future. I've had to postpone so many things, and I can't even count the number of dreams that I pushed to the back of my mind because they just aren't realistic right now. I've always wanted to travel, to see the world, but every time I think about it, I shut it down because I know I can't afford it. I've always dreamed of starting my own business, of having the freedom to be my own boss, but every time I entertain that thought, I remind myself that I can't risk that kind of investment without knowing where the next paycheck is coming from. I used to tell myself I'd go back to school, get a master's degree, and do something more meaningful with my life, but then I look at the cost of tuition, and I feel stupid for even thinking about it. And it's not just the big dreams I've had to put off, it's the little ones, too. A nice dinner out. A spontaneous weekend getaway. The ability to buy a new pair of shoes without checking the price tag first. I feel like I've become so accustomed to denying myself that sometimes, I forget what it's like to live without constantly thinking about money. And it's draining. Every single day. But I keep going. I keep trying. I tell myself that maybe it will get better, that maybe I just have to ride this out a little longer. I take on extra shifts, I do what I can to make ends meet, and I try to hold on to the hope that someday, things will click, that all of this will pay off in the end. I keep telling myself that if I just work hard enough, I'll make it out of this. But even as I say that, I wonder. I wonder if I'm just buying into the same lie that so many others have. I wonder if I'll always be stuck in this cycle, always fighting to stay ahead, always struggling to make ends meet. I wonder if I'll ever be able to live without the constant anxiety of wondering whether I'll be able to pay the bills next month. I don't know the answer. I wish I did. But for now, I keep going, even when it feels like I'm sinking. Because what else is there to do? There's no easy way out, no quick fix. It's just me, this pile of bills, and a dream that feels more and more distant every day. And maybe one day, I'll get there. Maybe one day, I'll have the freedom I've been working for. Maybe one day, I'll be able to look at my bank balance without the crushing weight of dread, without the constant worry that I'm one mistake away from falling into the abyss. But for now, I'll keep going. And hope that somehow, some way, I'll get to the other side. I never thought survival would feel like this. Not dramatic, not desperate in the way movies show it, just constant. A dull, gnawing weight that lives with me, like background noise I can't shut off. Most days, I pretend I don't hear it. I go to work, smile when I need to, joke with friends, scroll on my phone like everyone else. But behind all that, there's this constant calculation, like a spreadsheet running in my brain, how much I have, how much I owe, what I can cut, and how long I can keep doing this. I'm 27. I've got a degree, a full-time job, and nothing to show for it but anxiety and student loans the size of a small house. I thought if I did everything right, go to college, work hard, stay out of trouble, I'd be okay. That's what they promised us in school, isn't it? Get your degree, and the rest will fall into place. But the math doesn't add up. My rent's gone up twice in the last year, groceries feel like a luxury, and don't even get me started on healthcare. My salary has barely budged since I started working 3 years ago, and inflation doesn't wait for your paycheck to catch up. Every decision I make, no matter how small, has a price tag attached to it. Taking the bus instead of rideshare. Skipping breakfast so I can afford dinner. Saying no to a friend's birthday dinner because it's at a place with entrees over $20. Canceling my Spotify premium and pretending I don't mind the ads. They say just budget better, but budgeting doesn't work when there's not enough to begin with. There's this feeling that follows me, like I'm on a treadmill that keeps speeding up while I'm trying to run with a sprained ankle. I'm not lazy. I work. I freelance on weekends. I do my own taxes, cut my own hair, cook every single meal at home. But it's never enough. Rent takes half my paycheck. Loans take another chunk. Then there's groceries, utilities, a phone plan, the bus pass. What's left? Not enough for savings, not enough for emergencies, not enough for anything that makes life feel like living. I've started measuring my life in costs I can't afford. Dating? Too expensive. Therapy? Wish I could. Taking a break? Absolutely not. Even getting sick stresses me out more than the illness itself. I once went to urgent care and cried more over the bill than the pain. People talk about self-care like it's a candle and a bath bomb. My self-care is not opening the bank app on weekends. My self-care is staying home because being around people who aren't in survival mode makes me feel ashamed. I know that's not healthy, but it's honest. The worst part is the isolation. Everyone's pretending to be okay. Social media is full of smiling faces on vacations, weddings, brunches. And maybe they're just better at hiding it than I am. Or maybe they really are doing better, and I'm the only one who feels like a failure in their 20s. I don't talk about it with my family much. They're struggling too, and I don't want to add to their worries. When they ask how I'm doing, I say busy instead of barely holding it together. I used to have dreams. I wanted to go to grad school, maybe start a nonprofit, or move to a different city and write full-time. Now those dreams feel like luxury items I can't afford. I've had to make peace with postponing everything. I tell myself, not now, but someday, even though I don't know if someday is real or just a fantasy I cling to so I don't break. Sometimes I wonder what it would feel like to wake up without fear. To open my fridge and see it full without calculating what I had to skip to get it that way. To take a vacation not to escape, but just to rest. I don't think I've truly rested in years. Even on weekends, my mind races, what's due, what's behind, what's breaking next. I live in a constant state of low-grade panic that never goes away. I try to cope in small ways. I find quiet moments, a walk without my phone, the library on a rainy afternoon, rereading books I already own because they don't cost anything. I keep a journal where I vent, and sometimes I reread old entries just to remind myself how long I've been surviving. Not thriving, just surviving. And that's something, I guess. I wish more people talked about this. The quiet grind of being broke but not poor enough for help. The guilt of not being grateful when at least you have a job. The fear of slipping through the cracks because you're too exhausted to keep climbing. I wish there was a space to say, I'm doing my best, and it's still not enough, without feeling like I'm failing at adulthood. I know I'm not alone, even if it feels that way. I know there are millions of us stuck in this in-between, working hard, staying afloat, but never getting ahead. We've internalized the hustle so deeply that we feel guilty for resting. We keep pushing, hoping that something will shift. That one opportunity will open the door to a different life. But hope is a fragile thing when reality keeps closing in. I'm not giving up. I can't. There are still pieces of me that believe in more. I still have dreams, even if they're quieter now. I still look for joy in the little things. A free museum day. A friend who brings over leftovers. A clear night sky. It's not much, but sometimes it's enough to remind me why I keep going. Maybe one day, I'll look back at this version of myself, the one who kept going, even when everything felt heavy, and I'll be proud. Maybe I'll tell my story from a place of stability and say, that was the hardest part, but I made it through. I don't know when that day will come. But until then, I'll keep showing up. Keep finding moments of peace. Keep trying to build a life worth living, even if it takes longer than I thought. Because I deserve more than survival. We all do. I used to think adulthood came with freedom, freedom to travel, to make choices, to build something that felt like mine. But the older I get, the more it feels like adulthood is just a series of mounting bills and decisions I don't really get to make. I'm 27, and most days, it feels like my life is just a reaction to whatever crisis pops up next. The job I have isn't awful. It pays okay by some standards, and it looks decent on paper. I work in marketing for a mid-sized company. But okay doesn't really stretch as far as it used to. After taxes, rent, car payments, groceries, utilities, and the never-ending stream of surprise expenses, there's barely anything left. I've run the numbers so many times I practically know them by heart. Every month ends with a handful of dollars in my account, and I hold my breath hoping nothing else goes wrong before the next paycheck hits. My rent went up again last month. Not by much, but enough to throw off the delicate balance I try to maintain. That extra $75 means I had to downgrade my grocery list again. I've stopped buying fresh produce unless it's deeply discounted. I eat a lot of pasta. Frozen vegetables. Rice. I can't remember the last time I bought fruit without calculating how many days it would last and whether it was worth the cost per serving. I miss strawberries. I miss not thinking about food like math. I didn't always live like this. In college, I thought this was temporary. I believed the system would work if I played by the rules, study hard, graduate, get a job. I did all that. I got the degree. I took the internships. I started at the bottom and worked my way up. But the ladder is broken. Or maybe it was never real to begin with. My student loans are still there, hanging over me like a shadow. I pay the minimum because that's all I can manage. Every time I look at the statement, it feels like I'm throwing money into a bottomless pit. The balance never seems to go down. I've accepted that I'll be paying them off for the next decade, maybe longer. That idea used to scare me. Now I just try not to think about it. What scares me more is how tired I am. Not just physically, although that's part of it. But emotionally, mentally. It's exhausting to constantly feel behind, to always be choosing between necessities. Do I fix the slow leak in my tire this week or push it and hope I can stretch it to next payday? Can I afford to see a therapist for my anxiety when the copay alone is a quarter of my grocery budget? I put off doctor visits. I reuse clothes until they're falling apart. When my coat tore last winter, I stitched it with thread I found in an old drawer and hoped no one noticed. Sometimes I wonder if I'm the only one quietly falling apart while trying to make it look like I'm doing fine. Social media doesn't help. Everyone's posting photos of dinners out, trips to Europe, new apartments with hardwood floors and giant windows. I look around at my small one-bedroom with creaky floors, where the heat only sort of works and the walls are too thin, and I feel ashamed. Like I've failed. Even though I know comparison is a trap, I fall into it anyway. There are nights when I lie awake thinking about all the things I put on hold. I wanted to travel before turning 30. I wanted to take time off to write a book, something I've dreamed about since I was a kid. I wanted to move to the Pacific Northwest, live near the ocean, breathe in the salt air and feel like I was building a life that belonged to me. But every dream has a price tag, and my reality has a budget. I cope by compartmentalizing. I make lists. I color code my spending in spreadsheets. I sell old clothes online. I take surveys for gift cards. I don't drink or smoke or go out much, not because I'm virtuous, but because I can't afford to. I try to find joy in small things, walking in the park, listening to music I love, journaling when I have the energy. But even those can feel like fragile things, easily swept away by one bad week. The worst part is the sense of entrapment. It's not just that things are tight, it's that I don't see a way out. Wages have barely moved, but rent, groceries, gas, everything keeps climbing. I do the work of 3 people some days just to stay where I am. I've looked at side hustles, but they all seem to require time, money, or energy I don't have. Even getting a better job feels out of reach, applications take hours, interviews go nowhere, and each rejection chips away at something inside me. I don't want to be dramatic. I know other people have it worse. I have a roof over my head. I'm not homeless. I remind myself of that when I feel the panic creeping in. But just because things could be worse doesn't mean this isn't hard. What gets to me most is how invisible it all is. There's this quiet shame that comes with struggling financially. No one wants to talk about it. We're all supposed to be independent, successful, thriving. If you admit you're not, it feels like a personal failure. I've smiled through conversations where friends talk about investment portfolios and weekend getaways, nodding along like I'm not calculating how to afford gas next week. Some days I feel angry, at the system, at the economy, at the way everything is stacked against people like me. But most days, I just feel numb. Like I'm running on autopilot. I show up, do my job, say I'm doing okay, and go home. Then I do it all over again. I wish I could end this story on a hopeful note. I wish I could say things are looking up. But right now, they're just not. I'm trying. I'm doing everything I can. But I'm tired. And I want more than just survival. I want to feel like I'm building something that matters. Like there's more to life than bills and budgets and balancing acts. Maybe one day, I'll get there. I have to believe that, or else what's the point? But today, I just need to be honest and say, it's hard. I'm not thriving. I'm surviving. And that has to be enough for now. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.